The morning starts out light for journalists Maria Ressa and Ray Santos Jr., as if they're not about to be read a verdict that can send them to jail for 6 years. Santos has long resigned from Rappler in the media, but in his reporting days, he was part of a crop of investigative journalists in the country. He wrote the disputed article, an investigation in 2012 into the conduct of former Chief Justice Renato Corona, who was found to be using vehicles of influential businessmen, including Wilfredo Keng.
Well, 2012 yung story. It's been 8 years since lumabas yung storya, and I still stand by my story kahit 8 years.
Santos got a haircut especially for the promulgation. Ressa says her mask, face shield, and gloves were sent to her by veteran journalist and longtime mentor Cheche Lazaro. The atmosphere inside the courtroom is light. Ressa even chats with one of the lawyers of Wilfredo Keng. Judge Reynelda Montesa decides to read her final note before her verdict. She lectures that the free press must be a responsible press. At this point, people in the courtroom exchange side glances, sensing that it could only come to one conclusion. Ressa and Santos are found guilty of one count of cyber libel, sentencing them to 6 months to up to 6 years in jail. They do not have to go to jail until the conviction is made final by the Supreme Court. They are also made to pay Keng 200,000 pesos for moral damages and another 200,000 pesos for exemplary damages for what it calls reckless accusations against Keng, who was described in the story as having been involved in illicit activities. Santos based his report on a confidential intelligence report. Rappler was allowed to keep its source confidential. In the ruling, the Montesa court faults Rappler for not clarifying the 2012 article even after Keng gave Rappler in 2016 a PIDEA certification clearing him of any derogatory report.
The agency that did that intelligence report is different from the PIDEA, which is the certification Mr. Keng got.
Judge Montesa did not discuss how to treat reports from confidential sources, although she noted during the trial that the Soto law allows journalists to keep its sources confidential. The ruling also does not discuss Article 354 of the Revised Penal Code, which says malice is not presumed if it was a fair and true report of an official proceeding which is not confidential.
Courage means if someone powerful comes after you to tell you to take down a story, that you don't just blindly take it down, that you double check, that you triple check, because it could be a way to intimidate you. What does this mean for investigative journalism? Well,
for someone who's doing his job, to be here, I think it could be not just me, but other people who are doing his or her job properly could be in the same situation that I am in right now.
Regardless of the factual disputes in the article, Ressa and Santos could not have been charged because the article was published in May 2012, 4 months before the cybercrime law was enacted. Penal laws cannot be retroactive. But in February 2014, Rappler corrected a typo. The Department of Justice said this constituted republication. The Montesa court sides with the DOJ that the republication constitutes a separate offense. Ordinary libel lapses in 1 year, meaning you can only be sued for libel within a year of publication. Cybercrime law does not say anything about the prescription period of cyber libel. The Montesa court also interprets that the 1-degree higher penalty in cybercrimes mean the prescription period is now 12 years.
If you have an article that had already lapsed, well, let's say you wrote it 12 years ago, but you found a typo and fixed it, the 12-year clock begins again. Those are things we need to look at because that's a death by 1,000 cuts of your rights. And mine, so that's also...
The National Union of Journalists of the Philippines says the government now has a new weapon to intimidate and silence not only media, but all forms of dissent. The young Philippine Cybercrime Law is a hotly contested law for its impact on freedom of speech. 8 years later, the law is given new clause with a 12-year shelf life and the ability to charge anyone who republishes in the age of the internet. With Rappler's upcoming appeals, the judiciary is given a new challenge to re-examine the freedom of the press and the value it holds in a fragile democracy. Lian Buan, Rappler, Manila.